so thank you for this generous introduction and for the even more generous invitation, which for me is something of a pilgrimage, as Trent has for every card-carrying Deleuzian the status of a holy shrine. You know, even today, one can overhear, when 2, 3 or more scholars are assembled in his name, reminiscences of the first Deleuze conference in Trent. And I come here therefore much too late, because I wasn't at that conference, humbly, in awe, and also freezing because it's really cold. And I want to thank David and the English, and it's warm, you know, so this is a Canadian thing or American thing, right? Outside it's really cold, inside it's really hot. I want to thank David and the, it's not the English department, it's the Department of
Programming, Theory, Culture, and Politics.
Thank you. That have made this, you know, possible. Okay. Actually, what I've brought with me for you today is just one sentence, and that sentence is not even my own. It comes from Gilles Deleuze's Difference and Repetition, and it has, at least for me, all the characteristics of a conceptual koan, which, as all of you know, is a Zen practice of pondering unusual figures of thought, such as the infamous sound of one hand clapping. Everything that I will say today has emerged from this sentence, and everything leads back to it. Here it is. However, instead of something distinguished from something else, imagine something which distinguishes itself, and yet that from which it distinguishes itself does not distinguish itself from it. Drawing on that sentence, I will argue that Deleuze's remarks on lightning illustrate a number of basic promises of his philosophy, such as a conscious thought emerges from an assemblage of unconscious thoughts, quality emerges from quantity, the digital emerges from the analog, difference emerges from indifference, and finally, the philosophical emerges from the pre-philosophical. My talk is 4 parts. 1 is the overture, the lightning field. 2nd is lightning. 3rd is philosophy. I try to keep it simple. And 4 is coda, lightning fields. Okay, here we go, part 1. It should take about 45 to 50 minutes, so I've timed it. You know, it should be okay. Overture, the lightning field. Walter de Maria's land art project, The Lightning Field from 1977, consists of 400 stainless steel rods that have been set up in a grid that forms a 1 mile by 1 kilometer square in the landscape of New Mexico. Analogous to the way that Native American dream catchers are meant to draw tensions from the psychic atmosphere towards them, you know, their function, again, as you all know, is to catch bad dreams. The metal rods are meant to draw tensions from the physical atmosphere towards them. Their function is to catch lightning bolts, which should discharge their energy within the field and thus cause electric spectacles. The effective power, effective theory here, the effective power of these spectacles, which according to de Maria is not dependent on spectators, although you can rent a nearby cabin, discharges itself within the parameters of flashes of light and explosions of sound. On de Maria's stainless steel stage, electrical charges dance in unpredictable, sublime choreographies of pure light and sound. Part 2, lightning. Like lightning itself, the iconography of lightning is dendritic. The Etruscans saw ominous divine messages in lightning, but already Lucretius, who was interested in philosophy of nature, or as we say in German, Naturphilosophie, rather than religion, makes fun of such divination in his poem De Rerum Natura. To do science is, quote, the way to investigate thorough the thunderbolt's nature, not to unroll the mystical verses of Tyre for nothing, so to search out the sure prescription of God's hidden planning. As Michel Serres has noted, Lucretius' poem sets the birth of physics against the practice of metaphysics. Quote, fire's phenomenon must be grasped and the system celestial. Meteorology must be versified, lightning electric. What end results they effect from whatever cause they are carried. So he's doing science rather than divination. Right? Despite Lucretius, however, the lightning has remained an attribute of the gods. It is a sign of God's wrath in the Bible and in the various national mythologies, an attribute of gods such as Zeus or Thor. Later, there are electric rather than religious myths both factual, such as Benjamin Franklin and Nikola Tesla, and fictional, such as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, the tragic hero who pays so dearly for stealing fire from the gods and bringing it to the human race. In the sciences, the explanations of how exactly lightning works are more contested than one might assume. I am not so much interested, however, in the scientific etiology of lightning or in its complex typology from ball lightning to the ounce fire, as I am in lightning as a figure of thought. In Deleuzian terms, in lightning as both an abstract and a concrete machine. You feel something in the air. You say this when you feel an electric charge in the atmosphere, a certain tension that makes your hair stand up, static. An initially diffuse electrical tension or electric potential has built up. At a moment that is hard to pinpoint exactly, this electric charge has become perceptible. It has crossed the threshold from the unconscious to the conscious, which does not mean, of course, that it wasn't there before. Not only that, no atmospheric condition is ever without electric charge. There's no situation without a given electric intensity. Always already everything is a complex interaction of electromagnetic fields, forces, and intensities, barometric pressures, temperatures, and humidities. Sometimes, however, the charged particles create, by what a Freudian would call processes of condensation and displacement, a field with immense differences in intensity, that somewhere and at some point can no longer keep itself in balance. Its electrostatic dynamics reach a critical point of what might be called electric potentiality, or also less positively, an electric crisis. Lightning, then, is the figure of an electric tension that has become unbearable within a specific meteorological situation and that discharges itself, as Lucretius would say, at an indeterminate place and an indeterminate moment. This happens either within one cloud, between two clouds, or between cloud and earth. And this sudden and unpredictable discharge is as spectacular as it is potentially catastrophic. The lightning eradicates the electric differences and resolves the tension between the differently charged electrical fields. Within these dynamics, the specific branchings and spasms of the lightning bolt are the result of the various electrical fields in the atmosphere through which the lightning finds the easiest way, the route of least resistance. To describe lightning as a part of and agent in highly unstable meteorological circumstances is first of all, of course, the job of meteorology and of physics, who measure the electrical fields with the help of machines of registration and notation down to the finest levels of technological perception. Today, of course, it is a platitude to note that these registrations can never be infinitely precise, although the differences in the given intensities are ultimately infinite. And we'll talk about this, and this is one of the major points also. In other words, the registrations, the intensities are what we call continuous or analog. Every registration, therefore, implies a level of black boxing because it is a reduction and a simplification. It reduces analog givens to digital data, the givens as given, in order to make them mathematically and scientifically manageable and countable. In fact, both machinic and human perception are in themselves, and when we come to Leibniz we'll talk about that, difference engines, which is something that I'll come back later when we talk about Leibniz. In his novel Gravity's Rainbow, Thomas Pynchon has staged the idea of lightning as a digital singularity within the analog continuum of given intensities by way of a story of a Polish undertaker, a kind of suicidal version of Franklin with his kite, who tries to be hit by lightning in order to experience a moment